So let's talk about economics again and talk about being a small business in Britain.
Oh, I know something about that.
Yes, you might know something about this. Napoleon called Britain a nation of shopkeepers, and it's worth sort of understanding how these small businesses are doing. One indication is the IPO market. IPOs are when companies make their initial public offering, that is, list on a stock exchange. That is, they go public, they raise capital from the markets, and that allows them to grow their businesses. Mm-hmm. And these fell by 40% in 2023 in the good old days of the Conservatives. Wow. We don't have figures for 2024, but it seems like another big catastrophic drop. Yep. And I think a total of £1 billion only was raised on the IPO market, meaning that companies aren't listing in Britain, they're not coming to Britain, and they're not raising money from Britain, and meaning that small British businesses aren't growing to become big enough to go on the stock market. This is important because small businesses, there's around 4.5 million of them, and they represent something like 99% of all businesses and something between 35% to 50% of total GDP, depending on how you count it, plus around 60% of all jobs. So it really matters what is happening to small businesses.
If anything, you might wonder, why would you ever do anything to inhibit a small business?
Exactly.
If you're going to have a corporation tax, for example, wouldn't you exempt small businesses from it?
Exactly.
Things like this. You would do everything in your power because this is where innovation comes from.
Unless you're a commie.
Unless you're a communist. So if you're a small business, this is obviously the first step towards becoming a big business. You have to go through this step first.
And just as a quick aside as well, if you're someone who works and doesn't own a business, which kind of business would you rather work for?
Exactly.
A business where you're in fact a large cog in a small machine, or a tiny cog in a gargantuan machine that can just be replaced like that? Exactly. Which one would you rather work for?
Exactly. And I went through that transition. I started off in a very small company. I could just kick in the CEO's door, tell him what I thought, and he will tell me yes or piss off. Went to a giant megacorp, and it was hell on earth.
Yes.
And thankfully, now I'm working for myself and for small businesses. So it really, really matters what happens here. Now, the businesses themselves, when you ask them, they are miserable. Q1 2025 was a disaster, the first quarter of the year. There's no uptick in performance, and the sentiment is down at -44. The way that these work is that I think 50 is neutral, and so the lower the reading is, the worse the businesses are.
But we had so much immigration.
But it was absolutely terrible, it seems, because growth is in under 1%, something like that. And this isn't big enough for small businesses to thrive. And weirdly enough, the consumer-facing sectors of wholesale and retail and accommodation were especially downbeat in the second quarter of this year. You'd think that with all of the migrants being placed in hotels, this would be positive. But no, it's been obviously terrible because people are so squeezed that they're only spending on the basics. The Small Business Federation explains, the Federation of Small Business explains that these sectors are labor intensive and they are especially hard hit by hikes in national insurance, thank you, Rachel Reeves, and in the national living wage, higher minimum wages. So what they're trying to do is basically impose equality. Dan has a very good segment of that, explaining how the objective of the state is to keep everybody between 30 and 40,000 pounds a year.
Yes. So you get benefits or you get taxed.
Exactly.
There's an extra layer into this because the left has a hatred for small businesses especially.
Yes.
Because they think that there is the proletariat and then the bourgeois. And those who are in the low bourgeois, they look at them as, the traitors.
Cool.
You should have been ours. So
Exactly.
they hate them especially.
Exactly.
And also there's the fact that most of them are rich. Some of them are rich. Yeah. I'm talking about the leftists, champagne socialists.
Yep.
So yeah.
The petty bourgeoisie are essentially a repudiation of the entire left-wing project.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because what it suggests is actually, even if you're in a system that is not equal, you can prosper if you work hard and you work for yourself.
Exactly.
And this is honestly, being a petty bourgeois business owner is probably the best kind of life the average person can expect to live.
Yes.
It's with
because it comes with
state
independence. It comes with freedom. It comes with the ability to set your own working hours.
You become a sort
you're free.
Yeah, exactly. You're free. This is as close. This is the English view of freedom right now.
Yes,
this is what it is. So
it's not about
damages it is bad.
It's not about the amount of wealth. It's about the fact that your income is independent of everybody else and is reliant on your own efforts, meaning that nasty HR ladies can't impose anything on you, meaning that you're left alone by most people, meaning that nobody can pressure you because you're independent. So it's really, even from a social perspective, it's really important to have small businesses thrive because they build a functioning society.
That's why the small villages look so good.
Exactly.
It's because they're full of small business owners who care about the place in which they work.
Exactly. And so the Forum of Private Businesses, another association for small businesses, say that current policy and regulation are too rigid, don't take into account the impact of small businesses, and policymakers seem to view small businesses like a big business, only smaller.
And this is a perennial problem. This is a particular problem with the European Union, and this is a very strong argument that was made during Brexit. And for some reason, the Conservative government did nothing with it.
Yes.
So there's a kind of homogenizing effect that is far easier to bear if you're a big business. So, for example, if you have 10,000 pages of regulations, which I don't know how much it is, but it's going to be a huge number of regulations.
Yep.
As a small business, it's actually very difficult to overcome that hurdle just on administrative burden alone.
Exactly.
If you're a big business, you can employ an entire department of people to do that for you.
Exactly.
And so it's a way of essentially cutting out the competition and the market by reducing the amount of potential competition in small businesses that might innovate in ways that you don't, and therefore grow and essentially become the sort of creative destruction that Hayek would constantly go on about is necessary for a healthy functioning economy. Like
Exactly.
this is the bureaucrat's dream and the normal person's nightmare that small businesses live under at the moment. Just FYI.
So a big business can afford a massive HR department and can afford a massive compliance department and give them jobs and pay them and still be profitable. If you're a small business, good luck. There's no chance you can do that.
You've got to do it yourself.
You've got to do it yourself because you are the CEO, the chief technology officer, the chief compliance officer, the chief legal counsel, etc., etc., etc. You are everything in your company if you own it yourself. You have to do all of these different jobs. Whereas if you're a big business, you can afford to hire departments and departments for this. And this is why
professionals who know exactly what they're doing and only do this thing.
Exactly. This is why the Forum of Private Businesses says you need to turn regulation on its head. Instead of first thinking about big businesses, what you ought to be doing is thinking about the impact on small businesses, then deciding whether or not to impose the regulation. Alternatively, you can scale things. You can be very nationalistic and interventionist on very mega businesses like energy, things of that nature, but you can be very libertarian when it comes to shops and shopkeepers. You can leave them alone. If they get big enough to pose systemic risks, then yeah, fair enough, the state needs to intervene. But to treat every business as a big business is insane, and that's what small businesses are calling for.
We wonder why we're not getting growth.
Exactly.
Wonder why the economy has just been persistently hamstrung by regulation.
Exactly.
By this kind of overburdensome and indiscriminate regulation.
Exactly. And now the ghost of Angela Rayner is going to impose the Employment Rights Bill, which limits private businesses further and imposes new restrictions on them and has all kinds of reporting requirements intended to create absolute equality between everybody everywhere, which is, again, communism. And 92% of businesses are terrified about it. Yeah. Weirdly enough, big businesses, I think, are only maybe 1 or 2% of all businesses. So this is basically some very small individual businesses, one-man shows, who think, I don't care about employment rights bills because I don't hire anybody, and big businesses because they have the giant compliance departments.
But also, what problem is this solving? Is the problem in Britain a lack of employment rights?
Yep.
That was not the problem.
Exactly. And you see this constant attempt by the state to deal with the problem of companies being registered improperly, all kinds of fraud, all kinds of schemes, all kinds of nasty activities that are coming directly from immigration. I think there was a link there for a BBC article covering how you had this huge addition of basically people working illegally by refusing to comply with any of the laws because they're migrant run.
Sorry, this is another insane and a very annoying point, is that all of this is done by consent. So
Yes.
the people who want to follow the rules and want to follow the laws, they will get punished for doing this, whereas the average Turkish barbershop isn't even registered. They don't matter. Like the slave labor that was going on in the factories in Leicester. You think they're applying the employment rights bill? No, because they don't cooperate, and so the government just ignores it.
Exactly. So the good news here is that Nigel Farage seems to understand this. And so what he has announced now is a Small Businesses for Reform Forum, this new outfit that is intended to address the fact that businesses in Britain are overregulated. Because in case we didn't convince you that small businesses are under enormous pressure, here are some of the things that they have to worry about. Firstly, HR and everything to do with equalities law and things of that nature. So if you hire a laborer who is of a non-British ethnicity, well, they can at any point come up with some kind of inequality claim or come up with some kind of discrimination claim, keeping you in absolute terror. I'm looking at Stelios carefully. And me. You have statutory sick pay. So if your staff gets sick and you're a small shopkeeper, you still have to pay them. You're looking at the fact that you can't get contractors because there are regulations intended to prevent you from working with people as contractors. You're looking at business rates. For our American audience, British businesses that rent a premises have to pay half of that rent in a tax.
Yes, we do.
Which is insane.
It's absolutely mad.
It's just crazy.
And that's not talking about the normal tax you have to pay.
Exactly. And so corporation tax, it's 19%. It's high, but then everything that you actually take out of the corporation on dividends and so on, you have to pay taxes on them. You have ridiculous approvals and regulations for pretty much everything. Interest rates for small businesses reach as high as 29%.
You think?
Yeah. For some small businesses, they reach as high as 29%, which is...
Is that on loans that they take, is it?
Yes.
I'm lucky I've not had to take a loan.
Yeah. And to not only high minimum wages and so on and so forth, to make it all worse, when you die, you have to give the government 40% of your business in inheritance tax. So the level of insanity here, the level of extremism here, of egalitarianism, reaching full-scale communism is crazy. And Farage seems to get this, finally.
On the plus side, at least, I mean, we know who Farage is. He's been a public figure for 30 years, right? And at least it's self-evident that Farage has this deeply embedded in his DNA.
Yes, he has this libertarian streak.
Yeah, where he obviously
which is necessary.
The
more Thatcherite aspect.
Exactly. He wants small business owners to prosper. He's always thought this.
Yes.
And this is something that's it's a very easy win for him. It's very reliable. I mean, this is the sort of thing that actually might help him in the Southwest.
Yes.
Because the Southwest is full of independent entrepreneurs who run small businesses.
Yep.
And we're a Brexit voting area. There's no reason we should be governed by the Lib Dems. Like, this is actually something that Reform might be able to make some progress here on.
Yes, exactly. So he seems to get this problem. He seems to get that the burden on small businesses is enormous. And more importantly, that this is a vote winner. Because 60% of workers, exactly, 60% of workers work for small businesses. And if these businesses do better, well, guess what? They can pay you higher wages because there's going to be more employment, more competition.
I mean, seriously though, right? Like, we would be about 25 to 30% bigger as an operation if we didn't have to pay such exorbitant taxes.
Yeah.
Like, if we didn't have to pay all of that, we would just have more staff and we'd be doing more things.
This is the thing. The government, I mean, we spoke about this last week when we had Pete North here. The government doesn't seem to understand the Laffer curve, that the higher you raise taxes, the less revenue you get. There is a point after which higher taxes means less revenue, and you have to get this right.
Yeah, but also they may be doing it deliberately because
They probably are.
You know,
They probably are.
I suspect it's actually not deliberate. I suspect it's actually that none of them have any experience in this realm whatsoever.
That's also
if you,
very true.
If you look at them, look at any of the past few governments. Like, what have these people actually done? Like Boris Johnson, professional politician. Keir Starmer, a human rights lawyer.
Yep.
Like, they don't know anything about this.
Yep.
The only person who did would have been someone like Rishi Sunak.
Yes. Weirdly enough.
Yeah.
Who was only involved in big finance, so he doesn't even get.
So he doesn't even get the. Yeah.
He doesn't even get the difference. He still thinks that it's the same thing. It's small business. It's just a big business, but it's small. Instead of understanding this, so the good news is that he's gotten somebody called Kevin Byrne to be involved in this, and this guy founded something called Check-a-Trade, which is a website where you can find people to do small jobs for you.
Oh yeah,
and to do trading jobs, and it's really good.
It's a review website as well. So
exactly,
it's a genuinely a kind of self-policing network.
Yes.
That you use if you want to get your bathroom restored or something like that. Right?
Think about it this way. It's guilds in the modern age.
Yes, it is.
It's what guilds would be like in the modern age. So somebody who understands this, being heavily involved with reform and having a say in this, is actually very good news.
Yeah, it's excellent.
It's
I can't
really
wait
good
until
news.
Farage kicks him out for saying something about immigration.
Here's...
Sorry.
Yes.
I don't mean to be cynical.
That possibility
We've seen it so many times.
next link, this guy cancelled.
That possibility is there. But there seems to be an understanding that supply side economics are necessary here.
Oh, yes.
That you need to release businesses and stop being a Keynesian lunatic. Wasn't Keynes a pedophile as well, by the way?
I have heard that he might have been.
Yes. So there is this need to actually do something to get the economy growing. And the only way to do that is to get small businesses involved. And if you consider the fact that this is a very clear vote winner, if you consider the fact that this is really necessary, well, then, yeah, there's hope now. And there's hope that we will see something better. Farage went as far as to say that we're living in an age where big businesses virtually control and own the political arena.
Completely true.
This is absolutely true because they're the ones who can afford to invite Keir Starmer to go watch the footy.
They can afford to lobby the government.
Lounges.
They
can afford the lobbying.
Yeah, we can't afford lobbying, obviously.
Exactly. So he seems to get this right, and this got him into a bit of trouble from the journalists who were very keen to defend the big businesses, weirdly enough.
They were.
But he seems to understand that this thing is happening and that it's important. And this realization could be transformational.
Yes.
It's really necessary. As with everything involving reform, the issue is implementation. Because while Farage declared that he's going to have this big new initiative, and he promised that there is going to be this this upgrade here, he didn't actually say what he's going to do. He didn't actually identify the policies that would have to be implemented and what these would look like. This is important, and this is always an issue. But somebody like Kevin Byrne is the kind of person who can sit on parliamentary committees and who can ask intelligent questions and have the experience of having owned and ran a very successful business and be able to contribute. So it's not enough because the economy is collapsing. And as we've said in previous episodes, at any point, Britain could face a major financial crisis, as well as the rest of Europe. But it's really good that Farage seems to get this. What's needed is really more of the same. You need somebody deeply involved in farming to also be running for MP. You need people who really know the fishing industry to be involved in your new endeavor if you're going to govern. So the key here is not just to get the policies right. This is one big part of it. The other key is to get people with the right experience in business and bring them back into parliament and end the careers of these career politicians. Because look around in parliament, nobody knows what the hell they're doing. Nobody's run a business. Nobody's managed anything. Nobody's had to deal with anything except political backstabbing. So I'm optimistic that we're beginning to see this change. It's a bit overdue considering that this government could sort of collapse at any moment under the next scandal. But it's a positive step. And so we want to thank Nigel for this. And we want to say, yes, please, more of the same.
Yes. Definitely more of this, please.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.